Senhoras e senhores, bom
Ladies and
dia.
gentlemen, good morning.
A Universidade Federal de Juiz de Fora sente-se honrada em
The
recebê-las e
University of Florida is
recebê-los
honored to
nesta
receive
cerimônia de
you
abertura do
in this
Congresso
opening
da
ceremony of the International Initiative for a Sustainable Built
Nós convidamos
Environment.
para se
We
posicionarem aqui à
invite to
frente,
take
primeiramente, o
position
coordenador de
first,
pós-graduação e pesquisa,
the
professor Leonardo
post-graduation
Goleada
coordinator,
Fonseca.
Professor Leonardo da Fonseca.
O professor neste ato representa a magnífica
The
reitora da
professor
UFJF,
here
a professora
represents
Gilene
the
Alves da
rectory
Silva.
of the
Convidamos também o
UFJF.
representante da Iniciativa
We also
Internacional para o
invite
Ambiente
the
Construído Sustentável, da Federação
representative of the
Internacional dos
International
Engenheiros
Congress
Consultores e do Conselho
and the
Internacional de
International
Construção e
Council
também da ONU no
of
PNUMA,
Construction
o
and
senhor Greg
UN,
Follier.
Mr. Greg Follier.
O diretor da Faculdade de Engenharia, professor
The
Henrique Antônio
Director
Carvalho
of
Braga,
Engineering,
e a presidente da comissão organizadora,
and
professora Maria
the
Tereza
Chair
Gomes Barbosa.
of the Coordination, Miss Teresa.
Senhoras e senhores,
Ladies and
todos de pé,
gentlemen,
para em sinal de respeito, acompanhamos a execução do hino nacional
everybody stand
brasileiro.
up to listen to the Brazil National Anthem.
Ouviram do Ipiranga as margens plácidas de um povo heróico gado retumbante, e o sol da liberdade em raios fúlgidos brilhou no céu da pátria nesse instante. Se o penhor dessa igualdade conseguimos conquistar com braço forte, em teu seio, ó liberdade, desafia o nosso peito à própria morte. Ó pátria mãe, idolatrada, salve, salve. Brasil, um sonho intenso, um raio vívido de amor e de esperança a terra desce. Se em teu formoso céu risonho e límpido a imagem do cruzeiro resplandece. Gigante pela própria natureza, és velho, és forte, quadro do colosso, e o teu futuro espelha essa grandeza. Terra dourada, entre outras mil, és tu, Brasil, ó pátria amada, dos filhos desse sol és gente, pátria amada, Brasil. Deitado eternamente imenso e esplêndido, ao sol do mar e à luz do céu profundo, fulguras do Brasil, florão da América, iluminado ao sol do novo mundo. Do que a terra mais garrida, teus risonhos lindos campos têm mais flores, nossos bosques têm mais vida, nossa vida no teu seio mais amores. Ó pátria mãe, idolatrada, salve, salve. Brasil de amor eterno seja símbolo, o lábaro que ostentas estrelado, e diga o verde louro desta flâmula, mas no futuro e glória no passado. Mas ergues da justiça clava forte, verás que o fim do teu não foge à luta, nem teme quem te adora a própria morte. Terra dourada, entre outras mil, és tu, Brasil, ó pátria amada, dos filhos desse sol és gentil, pátria amada, Brasil.
Nós agradecemos a participação das demais
We thank the
autoridades,
participation
professores,
of other
professores,
authorities,
técnico administrativo de
professors,
educação,
administrative technicians and students who are present in this event. The Congress is a result of the partnership between the International Initiative for a Sustainable Environment, the International Federation of Engineers, and the UN Program for Sustainability. We have as a topic Sustainable Built Environment for a Circle. We have the discussion, challenges, and regional opportunities, national and international, regarding the current advancements in research, tools, directives, and relevant experiences for sustainable built, with the goal of have a more consolidated about interaction of the team. We will first listen the president of the organizing committee, Professor Maria Teresa. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to have you here. Good morning. Good morning, Greg, who is representing SBE, FIBE, and UN, our pro-rector representing our rector, and the Director of Engineering. Everyone, welcome to this event. I would like to start thanking everyone who is organizing the event, the technical team, and the scientific commission who work hard these last months so we can have a lot of success in this event, which is a very current and strong theme in the civil construction, an event where we were able to bring many works in this area, focused on environmental sustainability, where we would be able to do in these 3 days an update what's happening both in Brazil and abroad. I'm sure that Greg, Professor Manuela, and Professor Luis and other panelists, they will bring valuable information so that we could value ever more and better direct the way of our researches. In a pre-choice of the articles, we are not very outside of what's being discussed abroad, and this will value our presentations and will open many fields of research and discussion inside the civil construction towards built environment. I wish you all great success. I cannot let to thank the Pro-Rectory that incentivized, and in name of everyone represented here by Professor Leonardo, I will thank our Pro-Rector of Structure, who helped us a lot during this time, and especially Professor Rosana, who was responsible for sustainable environment, built environment. I would like to thank our event because tomorrow is the World Environment Day, and we will have here at UFJF an activity from the university who was associated to the event regarding sustainability, showing all of the sustainability of the university that the university has been doing. I'm sure that Professor Leonardo, I don't know what you thought about speaking, but he's going to say everything the university is doing. I also have to thank CAPS, FAPAMIG, CNPq, that even though the difficulties we are facing helped us substantially so that this event could happen and strengthen this sustainability inside civil engineering here in the university and the area around. The professors who are here, some I know, others I will know better during these 3 days. So I wish you all a huge success, and I will reproduce a speech from Saramago when he won the Nobel Prize of Literature in 1990. I will not say word by word, but he said something like that. Every author who writes a piece, whenever he looks back, and if he doesn't regret what he did, it's because it was worthwhile. I wish when you leave here on Friday, you are certain that it was worthy to be here in the event, and update all the information in the innovation in all of the sectors that we have inside the civil construction towards a sustainable built environment. Thank you very much. I would like to invite Professor Henrique Antônio Carvalho Braga to speak.
Bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone.
Bom dia
Good morning
a essa mesa
to this
de abertura desse evento.
table of panelists in this opening of the event, to all the organizators and the sponsors of this event, everybody who is helping
No
us,
suporte ao evento, a empresa
giving
Rio
support
Sol,
to the
que é nossa
events,
parceira há tantos anos.
the company who is our partner for such a long
Agradecer a todos
time.
os presentes,
I would like to invite
parabenizá-los,
everyone here, congratulate you all for the initiative
de reciclagem, né, de virem, né, e
to
participar,
come here
né,
to
colhendo
recycle
as
your knowledge,
informações,
collecting the
né,
information,
a expectativa também, né, como
in the
a professora
expectation,
Teresa,
as Professor
sugeriu,
Teresa
né,
suggested,
indicou, né, que ao final desse evento a gente
so
saia
that
com,
at the end of this event,
com o espírito
we
de que
leave
valeu a pena,
with the
né,
spirit that it
tudo,
was worthwhile,
foi muito bom,
that,
deu tudo
that
certo.
everything was very good and it
Então,
all
assim,
worked
desejo
out. So
profícuo,
I wish
realização desse evento. Parabenizo de novo
a great
toda a equipe
event.
organizadora
I
pela iniciativa.
thank everyone
A
again
gente
on
fica
the
muito
organization.
feliz, né,
We are
ao
very
receber e
happy
abrigar,
to receive and
esse
host
evento
this
no âmbito
event
da nossa escola de engenharia,
inside our engineering school,
lembrando a nossa história.
always remembering our
Uma
history.
escola de engenharia que começou
An engineering
curso
school
de engenharia civil e eletrotécnica
that
há
started
110 anos.
110 years ago.
111 agora.
We will be 111 years this year. Last year we turned 110 years of existence.
Né? Então, com grande alegria
It
que a gente
is
vê essa evolução.
with joy that we
né?
see this
O único curso de
evolution.
engenharia, hoje
A
somos 10
single
cursos
engineering
de
course,
formação
now
e
we are
graduação
10
em
courses
engenharia,
of graduation in
na nossa
engineering
faculdade, só lá na nossa
here
escola, no
just
centro, né,
in the
engenharia,
engineering
da
center.
engenharia, né? Temos ainda 4
We
cursos de
have 4
pós-graduação,
courses
dois,
of
quase
post-graduation,
10, se a gente contar que
3
estamos
of
começando
which,
agora com a arquitetura, que também tem
starting
pouco
with
a ver,
architecture,
né,
which
com
has
essa
some
temática
similarities with this
do
theme.
evento, né? Então, assim, é uma felicidade a gente ver
We are
essa evolução,
joyful to see
ao
this
longo
evolution
desses anos todos.
throughout all those
Hoje a gente
years.
conta com cerca de
Now
200
we see
servidores na
around
faculdade,
200 employees,
mais ou menos,
around
nossos
150
técnicos
professors,
administrativos, sem
other
contar os
50
terceirizados,
administrative
né? E mais
technicians,
de 2.000
and
estudantes.
over
Então, é uma
2,000
grande
students.
escola,
So it is a
né? E que a gente se
massive
orgulha
school,
muito de ver
and we are very
iniciativas
proud to see
desse tipo,
initiatives of this
né?
kind,
Que se conectam com a
which
comunidade
connect with the
internacional,
international
né?
community
E conectam também com a comunidade
and
acadêmica,
connects with the
regional,
academic and
trazendo
regional
de
community.
ônibus de estudantes
I
todos
saw
felizes,
buses from
né, que
students all very happy
participar do evento.
coming here to
Então,
participate in
com
this
esse
event.
espírito, né,
So
que a
in
gente
this
fica muito
spirit,
feliz
which
de
makes us really
acolher, de
joyful
abrigar,
to
né, e
host
apoiar
and
totalmente com
support
todas as nossas forças
fully with all
esse
our
tipo de
strength
realização, esse tipo
this
de evento.
sort of
Muito
event.
obrigado. Sucesso
Thank you
a
very
todos.
much. Success to everybody.
Nós ouviremos agora o
We will hear
representante da
now
Iniciativa
the
Internacional
representative
para o
of the
Ambiente
International
da Federação
Sustainability
Internacional dos
for the International
Engenheiros,
Federation of Engineering,
Consultores e do Conselho
Consulting and International Council of
Internacional de Construção,
Building,
também da ONU, mais
and the
especificamente no
UN,
PNUMA, o
more
professor
specifically in
Greg
PNUMA,
Foliente.
Mr. Greg Foliente.
Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado a todos.
I'm glad to be here.
Eu estou feliz de estar aqui.
It's my first time in Brazil. But before I give you the welcoming remarks on behalf of the Sustainable Built Environment Conference Series, I'd like to run a video. This introduces the conference series. Please proceed. Please proceed now. It's part of the global series, and this is the first that we have this year, is here in Brazil. So you are first. This is the background video about the series. Started in year 2000, so this is 25 years running. That's Melbourne, by the way. That's not Melbourne.
The Sustainable Built Environment, or SBE Conference Series, stands as one of the world's premier and longest-running scientific and technical conferences. One of its unique features is the linking of various regional conferences in the year prior to a world conference in a continuing cycle. SBE events bring together the best expertise and the latest research and innovations to support the sustainable development and management of the built environment. The SBE partners and permanent co-hosts are 4 international non-profit organisations: the International Initiative for a Sustainable Built Environment, or ISBE, the International Council for Research and Innovation in Building and Construction, or CIB, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers, or FIDIC, and the United Nations Environment Programme, or UNEP. The whole life and multi-scale scope of SBE conferences range from materials and products, buildings, neighbourhoods, cities and regions, to countries and planet, empirical, theoretical, modelling and practical assessment and management methods involve explicit or intentional focus to meet not only their technical and functional performance objectives, but also the economic, social, environmental and governance outcomes that are needed to support sustainable development. Emerging technologies, such as digital technologies and AI, that enable this process and support the diverse roles of stakeholders, actors and decision makers in the built environment ecosystem are included. Interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary innovation approaches are valued. The SBE Conference Series emerged out of the Green Building Challenge, or GBC, in the mid-1990s, which was initiated by 2 Canadian colleagues and friends, Niels Larsen and Professor Raymond Cole. After the first GBC in Vancouver in 1998, and following the establishment of the International Initiative for a Sustainable Built Environment in 1999, the International GBC held in Maastricht, Netherlands in 2000 became the first SBE conference in the series. Now with a global footprint, the SBE Conference Series continues to strengthen the linkages between the local and regional events and the World Conference. In previous rounds, more than a dozen regional and national conferences have been organised and hosted worldwide, leading up to a global event. Regional and local issues are further explored at the next world event. This process allows for cooperation, collaboration, and effective actions tailored to local contexts. The SBE partners work and collaborate with other like-minded organisations to support and hasten the transition of the global and local built environment industry towards a more sustainable future.
So the slide next, on behalf of the organizations presented, welcome to the SBE Conference Series. Greetings from my partners. No, sorry, the PDF of the PDF of the partners. It should be the number 2 PDF slide. Anyway, so that's just the people who form the partnership, the board. So I am the chair and coordinator of the board from these 4 organizations, and they are sending their greetings here. This is the first of 6 regional events this year. So you are starting it. After this is Zurich in the end of the month. And so then the series continues until the last one in November. Next year is the World Conference, which will be back in Melbourne. I organized the first Melbourne Conference, World Conference in 2008. It's next year's 2026. So you are very welcome to the rest of the event, especially the world event, for those around the various regions, but also various SBEs. The best papers from this conference will be invited to the World Conference. Looks like they cannot see that, but we can skip that if that's the case. It's just a welcome. Thank you for your hospitality, for organizing this event, and I'm glad to be here. And I wish everyone a success. These are the people who are who are the members of the board. Nils Larsson, you've seen in the video, has retired. He continues as an advisor. He used to be the chair and coordinator. He used to do my job. And Luis used to be the SBE representative for this board. And Richard Lorge is the editor of the journal Buildings and Cities out of the UK, one of the top journals in the field. Right, so these are our friends. Okay, so there I stop. And again, I'm looking forward to knowing you more and what you do here, and to connect the world to you and you to the world. Thank you.
Nós convidamos para o seu pronunciamento o coordenador de pós-graduação e pesquisa, professor Leonardo Goleada Fonseca, que neste ato representa a magnífica reitora, professora Gerlene Alves da Silva.
Bom dia a todos e todas. Estamos muito satisfeitos em ter aqui o evento da SBE. Cumprimento também a mesa, professor Henrique, professor Greg, a professora Maria Tereza. E nós sabemos que um evento como esse é a conjunção de vários esforços, né? Que eles emergem agora, mas iniciam-se há muito tempo, né? A UFJF tem investido na sustentabilidade, né, com a criação, na nova gestão da coordenação de sustentabilidade, que tem atuado não somente pensando nos processos de economia circular, reforma de equipamentos, mas também no uso de materiais sustentáveis, né, e estratégias para aumentar os índices medidas de sustentabilidade da universidade.
Of sustainability of the university.
Gostaria também de falar pouco
I would also
sobre o
like to
ambiente construído,
speak a
que é
little
uma
about the
área de
built
pesquisa
environment, which is
interdisciplinar,
an interdisciplinary area, multidisciplinary, and even
Nós,
transdisciplinary.
enquanto humanos,
We, as human beings,
nos relacionamos
we
com o ambiente
relate
construído,
to
né,
the
há
built
mais de
environment
8, 12 mil anos, quando nos
more than
tornamos sedentários,
8,000 years
desde
ago,
as primeiras
when we became
construções
sedentary, when
até
the
hoje,
first
né,
buildings
nós
emerged.
desenvolvendo
Until
novos
now,
materiais,
we
novas
keep developing new
estratégias,
materials,
novas
new
técnicas, né,
strategies,
e
new
vamos
techniques,
continuar. Então,
and we
é
will
uma
continue.
área que depende
So this is
da
an area
pesquisa,
that depends on
depende
research,
do nosso entendimento e como
depends
nós
on
nos
our
relacionamos
understanding on
com
how we relate
o nosso planeta.
with our planet.
Além disso, a
Beyond that,
universidade também
the
está
university
alinhada, né, com os processos
is
de
aligned
agir
with the
localmente,
processes of
pensar
acting
globalmente,
locally,
voltado
thinking
para
globally,
os objetivos de desenvolvimento
focus on
sustentáveis.
the sustainable development
Atuam os nossos
goals.
professores, né, em parceria
Our
com a
professors are
Pró-Reitoria de
working
Pesquisa e
with the
Pós-Graduação,
Prorectory of
atuam
Research
em
and
projetos que
Coordination.
vão,
They work on
desde
projects that
a
goes
segurança
from
hídrica,
hydro
eficiência
safety
energética,
and
pensando
energy
também em
efficiency,
processos mais
also
eficientes,
thinking on more
do ponto de
effective
vista
processes,
logístico, voltado à
on a
economia
logistic
circular,
process
não só
regarding
projetos
circular
em
economy,
parceria com as prefeituras,
not only
com
projects
as
with
empresas, mas
the
também projetos
mayors,
internacionais, né?
but also
E no
in
contexto
international projects,
brasileiro,
and
o
in the
Brasil
Brazilian
hoje
context.
tem
Brazil nowadays has more than 5,000 cities. Each one of them has different necessities. So this creates a very important area, and it's very important that this Congress is aligned with all these needs, not only Brazilian, but global. Speaking on behalf of our rector, Professor Priscila, and Rector Girlene, we thank the invitation and we wish you all a great event. Thank you.
Nós agradecemos e solicitamos
We
que os
thank
integrantes da
and
mesa de honra
solicitate
retomem seus lugares na plateia para que a gente
those
dê continuidade
in
às
the honor
atividades.
table to
A
go back
sessão,
to the,
professor
with the
Greg
exception
continuará
of Professor
conosco.
Greg, who will continue with us.
Professor Greg irá
Professor
ministrar
Greg
nossa conferência de
will
abertura, que tem como
We'll start our
tema
keynote
o ambiente
speech,
construído
which has
sustentável e resiliente
as
para
a
o futuro.
theme
Os avanços que precisamos na
the
COP30
advances
rumo
we
a um planeta
need on
seguro e
COP30
justo.
for
O
a
professor
just
atua
future.
na Faculdade
The
de Engenharia e
professor
Tecnologia da Informação da Universidade de Melbourne,
works
na
in the
Austrália,
University of
e é
Melbourne in
professor
Australia,
honorário do
and
Jubileu
it's
de
an
Ouro da
honorary
Universidade La Salle,
professor
nas
of
Filipinas.
the Jubilee.
Obteve bacharelado em Engenharia
He
Civil pela
had
Mapu
a
University
degree
nas
in the Mapu
Filipinas
University
e
in the
2
Philippines
mestrados e doutorados pela
and 2
Virginia
master's
Tech nos
degree
Estados
for the,
Unidos.
for the Virginia
Atua
Tech in
também
the
como
USA.
presidente
He also acts as
do
chair
Conselho da Organização Sem Fins
on the
Lucrativos,
Council of the
Iniciativa Internacional para o
NGOs
Ambiente Construído,
for the
cientista
built environment,
interdisciplinar e
interdisciplinary
acadêmico de renome
scientist,
global,
and
recebeu a prestigiosa
global
medalha
renown.
James
He
Crow
received the
da
prestigious medal
Sociedade
James
Americana de
Crow
Engenheiros
from
Civis. Entre outros
the
prêmios, está
civil
listado no
engineering of the
ranking
United
mundial
States.
da Universidade de
He's
Stanford.
ranked in the University
Possui
of
mais de 3
Stanford.
décadas de
He
experiência
has more than
liderando
3
e
decades
facilitando o
leading and
desenvolvimento de
facilitating
agendas
the
de pesquisa
development
nacionais
of
e internacionais
national
em vários
agendas and
setores
international
envolvidos.
ones
Com
in many
vocês,
sectors and
professor
domain with
Greg
you,
Follier.
Mr. Greg Folliant.
Thank you once again. As I said earlier, this is my first time in Brazil, and so I'm very glad to be here. Of course, we cannot forget the Rio Declaration in 1992, and now we are... This one, okay. And then, of course, we are on the road to COP30 in Belém in 2025. So during that period of time, there's a lot. These are milestones in the effort towards a more sustainable planet. But over that period, if you shift a little bit backwards from 1972, the first picture of the Earth in 1972 by a human, and 50 years later, the BBC talked about this and the fact that you can see the change even from space, the way we have polluted the planet. That was interesting. So my talk is about the road to COP30, Belém, among many other things, and the need for sustainable and resilient built environment to follow what I call the donut, which you most would be familiar, popularly dubbed as the donut economics. So for simplicity, we just call it our donut future. Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but the basic premise for this talk is first that at COP30 Belém and beyond, we must work together with policymakers, authorities, and leaders to set national greenhouse gas emission targets and whole life carbon pathways for the building, construction, and real estate to meet the main goal of the Paris Agreement, which is climate stability for human existence. The second point is every stakeholder has a role. As others in public authorities, we as researchers and others have a role for this purpose. But for us who are researchers, we need to seek holistic, outcome-based, across multi-dimension, what I call the N, bottom line, beyond 3, bottom line, the N, bottom line, integrated, scalable solutions. So we're going to navigate this challenge of the talk in 3 parts. Mind the gaps, aim for the goal. Pathways and plans need actors. And we need to sustain innovation via outcome-based and bottom line framework. First, mind the gaps, aim for the goal. It was Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, who said, always begin with the end outcome in mind. So in that case, if you talk about the future of the planet, we talk about the planetary boundaries. Because if we breach the planetary boundaries, we get into this irreversible degradation and even the demise of the planet that we live in. And it has different dimensions. The planetary boundaries, which we'll not get into in detail, but one of them, obviously, is the climate stability dimension. So the idea is that we have an absolute limit, which is the planetary boundary and the Earth system boundaries. And they are not the same, the planetary boundary and Earth system boundaries, but they are related. But in the Earth system boundaries, we are able to have practical limits for the things that we can understand and we can address. And so this has become the absolute limit for the national economy and everything that we need to do as humans. And so that's become the basis on how do we scale down the planetary Earth system boundaries to the things that we can understand at jurisdictional level, at national economy level, to individual actors and companies and groups of people. So we can act on them, and when we act on them locally, it will have global impact. So we need the global limit down to local. We need local action. So it's not just think global, act local. It's think global, act local, think local, act global. It's glocal. Yeah? We need to do both. It's no longer one or the other. Because we are way beyond the goal of the Paris Agreement, which the climate stability goal, as you know, is not to exceed 1.5 to 2 degree warming moving into the future. And to be able to do that, we need to hit peak greenhouse emissions and rapidly go down. And as you know, the carbon emissions in the atmosphere stay there for thousands of years. So even if you go down the emissions, anthropogenic emissions, climate instability has started and it will just continue. The temperature continues to grow because it has heated up. And this is the reason why we need to address. Because in the last COP, in the last series of COPs in 28 and 29, we are tracking this global warming trend, and we are far beyond the limit. And the current trajectory, we're going to hit 2.7 degree. Now, remember, the limit in Paris Agreement is 1.5 to 2 degree. The current trajectory leads us to 2.7 in 2100. And so we are in this problem of code red, as the Secretary General of the UN says. Now, the ecological ceiling, these planetary limits, is the outside of the donut, in the donut economics. It's the outside boundary, and you can see that the climate change, the ocean acidification, the chemical pollution, and the other parts of the limits. The inside limits, or the floor, if we call the planetary boundaries as the ceiling, the floor is the just society goal, which means provide for everyone, similar to what in the SDG, no poverty, education for all, health care and well-being for all, shelter for everyone, supply of water and energy and food, and basic human rights. That we need to raise up the level of living across the planet. That's the floor. That's the just future, the safe future. So this is a donut. That's the future we want. It's not just safe, it has to be just. Because the problem we have, as it is in Brazil, as it is everywhere else in the world, is we have a discrepancy of distribution of riches and wants, and the supply of this, and it's the same in the area of impacts. We know it's asymmetric. The people who have produced the least emissions are the ones that are most affected by its impacts. In the latest report of the Earth Commission, they published a report in the Lancet Planetary Health, and they talk about the scientific basis for both the ceiling and the floor. Beyond the concept that was in the popular donut economics, which is very vague, it has the right concept, but it doesn't have targets. But in this paper that you can access, they look at the evidence based on science and the expertise of the people who are there. Some of them are people I used to work with, like Professor Shumei Bai of Australian National University. I used to work with her at the National Science Agency of Australia at CSIRO. And we published together in the past. And in this work, they said that in the climate dimension, the allowable temperatures for safe and just corridor is actually 1 to 1.5. We can still be within the safe, but we are no longer in the just. We passed that. And even the safe one, we have a problem. Having said that, let's not lose hope. While there is time, while we are here, we can do something. But we need to be clear what we need to do to make the maximum impact. We need to mind the gaps. What are the gaps? I put them in 3 categories. Of course, the emissions reduction gap, the one I already mentioned. The collaborative action gap, the way we can work together, different countries, different people in the ecosystem. And this led in the COP28 in Glasgow to what was called the Breakthrough Agenda Report to accelerate the transition of sectors. But they recognize the fact that we are not working enough together. The third is the socioeconomic equity gap, the one I was talking about, the social distribution and the social and just society issues. So these are the 3 gaps. They are addressed by policy at the highest level and specific programs at the lower level. But what can we do in the science fields? We need breakthrough in science and research across all fields, from social science to, of course, what we do in engineering or planning and design. We need science-informed limits, pathways, and actions. We need transdisciplinary collaboration and innovation, as we've heard from our dean and rector and other people. And then the safe and just Earth system boundaries and corridors, both global and local. So it followed this a breakthrough agenda in COP28 by a specific breakthrough report for the building and real estate sector through the global ABC, Alliance for Building and Construction, that works closely with UNEP, Global ABC, UNEP and Global ABC. So together with the International Energy Agency, they produced a report which follows the Breakthrough Agenda Report specific to the sector. So if the sector takes around 40% of the anthropogenic emissions, what can the sector do in the breakthrough? So they have the breakthrough, and the mission of the breakthrough for building sector worldwide is to push for near zero emissions and resilient buildings. It's not or anymore, it's and. Because the warming has continued and will continue, so we are mitigating as well as we are adapting together by 2023, which was supported. So here I pause a little bit and talk about the big things that I do across different sectors. So over time, if we took conceptually, if the sustainability potential is the y-axis, and the desired state is we achieve the UN agenda by 2030, over time, of course, we can be unsuccessful with the current trajectory, right? We fail early or we fail late, but we fail nonetheless. So our objective is to reach that goal, but the problem is we may be doing too late, too little, too late, which means other things happen and the whole thing collapses before we get there, when the planetary boundaries collapse the system. So the other issue is that while we're trying to move step forward to achieve Agenda 2030, we're hit by disasters, wildfires in California or Canada, or Brazil, or Australia, or Europe, earthquakes in the in other fields, but mostly things that are related to climate. So, but every time we move forward, we're hit by a disaster, steps back. Yeah? And then we move forward again, and we're hit by a disaster, and we're back again. So after 50 years, where do we find ourselves? We're in the same place. So we need to be resilient and sustainable together. Now, the concept in resilience is usually business continuity, or you get the system to work again. It's in a matter of hours, minutes for your telephone or electricity. It can be weeks if it's transport failure, and so on. But so it's more medium, immediate to short term. Whereas sustainability concerns, obviously, is decadal or even generations and generations. So we cannot be sustainable if we are not resilient, essentially. That's the point. And so the breakthrough agenda, the buildings agenda, recognize that. And therefore, we need our built environment to be both sustainable and resilient. It's not an option. And that's why in Australia, if I go back to Australia, Infrastructure Australia has produced a reform report, and they have a separate report on sustainability principles for infrastructure in Australia, and resilience, separate reports, because they recognize the problem. Of course, we've been talking about this for 25 years, right? But at least government and industry are getting into the picture. So we have a lot of opportunities and barriers. In this little piece of 250 words or less, I was asked to comment on opportunities and barriers to net zero cities. And we'll discuss this in the rest of the presentation, that we need whole systems, whole life approach. Context is king and key. We need to aim big for that planetary boundary goal and that safe and just future. And then we need science and technology, knowledge, collaboration, and feedback loops. So we wrote a commentary in Buildings and Cities last year before COP29 in Baku. And we invite you, because it's open in the SBE. Excuse me. It's open in the SBE website. And you can still sign up to say we agree with that aim and join us to work together. But also we invite policymakers and authorities and other stakeholders to work with us and support and sign the call. So we talk about not just the problem. Okay, we set the problem. It's almost impossible, you say. But that's what humans do, right? We try to find solutions. I'm part of the leadership of the IEA, what's called the EBC Annex 89. And like most of you in Brazil and other parts of the world, you do a lot of research on very specific areas, very interesting topics in sustainability, in climate mitigation, and so on. Now here we have the third series. In fact, this is the fourth in the IEA Annex series that started back in the 1990s on life cycle assessment for building products, buildings and building products and buildings. And then about 16 years ago, we started Annex 57 with Luis and the university in Portugal, among other groups of people. And then on the life cycle assessment for embodied carbon. Then Annex 72, which is the life cycle combined embodied and operational carbon together in a whole life carbon process. But now we are trying to move forward to implement them and to develop guidelines for countries, not just the European countries, but countries around the world in different levels of development. So this has started. We have a last meeting in Melbourne, which I hosted. And the next meeting is in Zurich at the end of the month together with SBE 25. You can check the website on the things that we do. These are the 10 questions that we deal with. The goal is the Paris Agreement, Earth system boundaries. We talk about country level to individual projects to country, to global, and everything's connected. So from global to national budget, to national capability, to the barriers and opportunities for stakeholders in that country, to the tools and data you need, the assessment methods you need to be able to support projects individually and as a group, and then deal with the sector, the whole sector issues, so that you can meet the goals that you've set for the country budget and address this transition. So that's what we do. So we deal with action plan at the bottom. We deal with actors and stakeholders and enabling mechanisms and tools and platforms. I lead subtask 1, which is the planetary boundaries and decarbonization pathways. And the objective is to develop a national guideline that countries can use to be able to set their goal, set their pathways, develop their pathways, have an implementation and monitoring plan. And the details are in the other reports in ST2, ST3, and ST4. But ST1 will develop the overall picture that looks like this in concept. From the global planetary limits, Earth system boundaries, allocated to country, allocated to the industry sector of architecture, engineering, construction, and real estate, allocated to subsectors if possible, and then looking at both all kinds of allied sectors that contribute to the construction sector, building construction sector, in transport, in raw materials, in forestry, in manufacturing, for example, in minerals, and of course, energy. And we develop the guidelines, as I mentioned. And there are a number of roadmaps that you can look at now. In whole life carbon, there's the Danish, which the Australian followed, and of course the UK and the Irish and several other countries who have done not just a net zero emissions roadmap, most of which in the past dealt only with direct emissions from the use of energy, electricity and gas and other fuels in the buildings. Most other roadmaps in the past for net zero are just like that. I'll show you it's not enough. It's half of the problem only, if that's all you do. You're only addressing half of the problem. These ones I'm talking about are whole life carbon roadmaps, which means includes direct emissions, indirect emissions, and embodied emissions. And the UK was one of the first to develop the whole life carbon roadmap, and they've done a review in the last 2 years, and they're launching the next version of this. It has several elements. You have that trajectory, how you would address the 2050 net zero goal. You would have the measures for assessment and monitoring. You will have the actions that bring it down. What are you plan to do to bring it down? And you need the actors who will do these actions. Yeah? So these are the elements that are important. In terms of actions you can do, we have 3 typologies of actions: sticks, carrots, and tambourines. The sticks are the legal requirements, binding, legally binding, mandatory. The carrots are the incentives, voluntary market-based systems, and the tambourines are things about education and training and promotion and awareness and the like. Yeah? So any action you can do can be one of these or a combination of these, in fact, is what you need, is a combination of that. As I said, the UK is trying to get their next round of whole life carbon, and members of the Annex 89 have who worked with me in studying the roadmaps for whole life carbon that have been reported and presented in different ways, published. We did a review, and then they used the review to inform the UK effort for the next round. Okay, so I'm just telling you what's happening. So one of the things we are developing in ST1 is the National Whole Life Carbon Capability Development Framework that I lead. In this framework, the idea is that every country, any country in the world, can use the framework for self-assessment to find out where they are in their ability, capability to have net zero whole life carbon pathways. Yeah? So their governance, technology and data, people, and sustainability integration. The idea is you need to know where you are, need to know where you're going, and find out your gaps so that you can address it in your context, on a country, local context. And this is the kind of thing we do, that we populate in our effort. So this is the live spreadsheet that we run, for example. And the idea is not just to drive these roadmaps, but as scientists, we'd like to be able to to model from your baseline today, where we are today, if things continue as usual, what happens in 2050, 2030, 2040, 2050, and beyond? How do you do that? There's no other way, but you have to model them, right? So then if you model them, you can do a top-down approach like they did in the United States. You can do the bottom-up approach, as some countries do in Europe, and we do in Australia. So this is my PhD student who is finishing this month. And we've been doing this in Australia for 20 years that I started at the CSRO before I moved to Melbourne, this whole stack modeling for the whole country or the whole state. And you have top-down or bottom-up approaches. In the bottom-up approach, you can have a lot more granularity of specific actions that you can try to change settings to find out the future. This was the modeling framework that I developed in concept some 15 years ago, probably, or earlier, focusing on operational carbon only, direct emissions. And we have since, including interventions of sticks, carrots, or tambourines. But now, of course, we need the embodied carbon included. So now that is everyone is trying to do, is to find out these different settings of embodied and operational carbon actions, individual projects to whole sector policy, for example. And so we'd run this future from 2020 to 2050, for example. This is the residential buildings in the state of Victoria, which then we can look at what would it require. If it's business as usual, we will not meet the net zero goal. But if we do different combinations, then you can see we can meet it. The problem is that when we don't look at the embodied carbon, you think you're meeting the target, but you're only doing the direct operational carbon emissions. When you add the embodied carbon, you realize that you have this huge amount of carbon that's not touched. And if it's like that, and we're talking about absolute limits, then you're going to miss the absolute limits. Yeah. So when we do the whole life carbon, we can find this combination of we scale it from Victoria to the whole of Australia, like you would scale from your province here to the whole of Brazil, state by state. And so then we can find out that if we do business as usual, there's no way Australia can meet a net zero target. Even the nationally determined contribution by 2030 is not met nationally in the building sector. Yeah? And it's similar patterns and challenges. And this is how it breaks down state by state. For example, we don't meet the target. But if we work backwards and say we have to meet net zero, what do we need to do in the operational embodied? We can see that you can plan, and you can, in fact, address that earlier. So that is the power of the models. I work as a consultant. I cannot say for which country and which or series of countries or which organization. We did one very big country, non-annex one country, not Brazil. And you can see the first line is different. Every line is different scenarios. The first column is operational carbon only. The second column is embodied carbon only. The last column is the whole life carbon. In every scenario, none of them would meet it except the backwards. If we go and use net zero target, backwards action, what do you need to do to achieve it? And you can see that the scale of challenge and opportunity is almost equal amount with the operational carbon and the embodied carbon. And the problem with embodied carbon is as long as you're building new buildings, it just keeps growing up. And that's why there's a need. So even if you bring net zero, your direct emission, you will never meet your target if you're not dealing with embodied carbon. Because as you build, they go up. And that's why it's absolute requirement to meet net zero requirement of the future that we regulate embodied carbon at a level that will increase in stringency over time to bring it down. And therefore, materials you're dealing with, and especially cementitious products and concrete and steel and other materials need to be lower and lower. And this was our session, which I spoke in COP29 in Baku, is now the role, knowing all this modeling, who needs to do what needs to be done. Yeah? And so I focus on the players, the stakeholders. And of course, you can map the stakeholders in your country who are involved in the construction and building sector. And these are the normal setting at the national level. But I categorize them in terms of influence level, of direct influence. You would have rule shapers, the people who make the rules, the rule players who follow most of the rules. They have some freedom beyond the rule set. And then the rule shifters, the people who can make a decision that can shift the whole thing, regardless of the rules. And you can categorize who they are in different countries, and they may be different groups of people. So that's at the national level. We need to know who are the most critical in these decision schemes to drive down your national project in national stakeholder actor system. But you can also bring it down to the project level. Yeah? So we wrote about this in the Grass Architecture magazine that came out 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, it's not available online. There's a diagram on how do you limit to net zero in the embodied carbon for designers, and on the operational carbon, avoid, shift, and improve. What does it mean to do that on either operational or embodied carbon? But the thing I'd like to focus on is that even at the project level, you have a stakeholder network in a project, yes? And they have a flow of mass and resource flow decisions, and they have information flow. And you can see the policymakers and the public authorities always have a role, regardless, even though they're not deciding specifically, because they set the rules. Yeah? And so point is that wherever you are in the ecosystem, you have a role, even as a client and occupant stakeholder. Therefore, in the platform modeling scenarios, we need to take into account the decisions of these different actor groups. Because in the end, a plan is just a plan. Someone, somebody, or whole groups of people need to act on them. Plans need actors who decide and implement them. And so then in an old work I did in operational carbon modeling, this was a long time ago now, we can model combinations of sticks, carrots, and tambourines over operational carbon. Now we can do the same thing with embodied carbon now, and determine who makes the best impact or the strongest impact in a country based on your information. So it's important to understand the rule shapers, rule players, and rule shifters, because everyone has a role. So to finish off, I had a whole course related to this section, so I'll go very quickly, and I'll give you a reference that you can read. And the reason for this to be here is that it's not enough that we have a solution for today. If your innovation for today is really great and it will make an impact, it's not enough. We need to improve it even 5 years from now, next year, 10 years from now, because the challenge is huge. Because sustainability is not just a goal to be attained. It's a mindset that knows no beginning and no end. In fact, when I teach sustainability courses, I say we need humility, especially as experts and researchers, the PhD students, because you think whatever you do, oh, this will be sustainable, or we don't know. I won't be here 100 years later, and the things that I thought are sustainable today may not be. So we need a bit of humility for people who are sustainability experts. There's no such person, because we don't know whether it will work. We're making our best effort based on best information that we have. It's a concept that it's just a concept, the sustainability. Sustainable development is where we operationalize it. And we're working at these levels of frameworks, which are simplification, decomposing the issues and factors from the SDG for countries and these infrastructure and building rating systems that we use. Yes, these are decompositions. And we deal with these decompositions. So I promote this concept that the decompositions from the built asset, physical capital, we include natural, social capital, and economic capital with governance over time. We need to operationalize it in what I call the end bottom line framework. So in this framework alone, you have a minimum of 4 or 5 or 6 bottom lines from products to cities over the life cycle. It's not just the physical functional performance, it's the environmental performance, the economic, the social, which you can split into health and to well-being and many other factors. So it's N bottom line. And there are examples. The German rating system is a 5 bottom line framework. Yeah? So it's not just 3. And you can operationalize it. In the city's assessment system, I promote at least a 6 bottom line. There's a book that talks about this capital framework, which is 5 bottom lines in this book. And the concept that I train my class is that we decompose them because the real world is they're all interrelated, right? It's all mixed. But we try to simplify them with the end bottom line by saying you do aggregation and weighting to be able to run a system that you can then have use for decision making. Example. And in this approach, I use what I call the performance approach, outcome-based. You describe the outcome you like, and the performance approach just means describe the target, the outcome, rather than the solution. Yes? And the reason this is important is stated in the first building regulation in the Hammurabi Code, circa 1800 BC. This is in the Louvre. You may have seen this if you visited Paris. Article 229 of the Hammurabi Code, the builder has built a house for a man and his work is not strong. And if the house he has built falls and kills a householder, that builder shall be slain. This is a performance outcome statement. It doesn't tell you what to build and what not to build your house. It just says the house should not fall and kill someone. You can build it with whatever you like. That's a performance statement. The reason is I have a more expanded definition of the performance concept in buildings that include building as a process, building as a product, building as a service. But I'm not going to get into that. Just to say that the reason is because when you focus on your sustainable solutions as prescriptive, you prescribe the solution, you are fixed with the attributes of that solution. But if you look at the attributes, the outcome that you wish, and you describe the outcome that you wish, you can have many possible design solutions. That is the performance approach. For that reason, you can innovate. You're not straitjacketed. And you can always improve so that the next solution is better than the previous one. That's what we need. We don't need prescriptive solutions in sustainability space. We need performance-based frameworks. And the example of this for people who work in fire engineering is very clear. You cannot build these buildings, these beautiful buildings, using prescriptive approaches because you cannot have that much space and shapes. They can only be done using a performance-based approach using models to determine that the outcome required for safety can be met by your design. It's the same thing here in doing sustainability. You can have performance frameworks on the left. You can have objectives, and you can assess or design any solution on the basis of that framework. Yeah, so this is the work that we do in my class, and apply this at the briefing period so that you can use these performance requirements at the beginning of the project on a project-by-project level, as you do according to product, process, and service. There's an example I use for urban water system. that you can access through. I never published this. It was a conference paper, but it's been used a lot by many other PhD students and other people in different contexts. But it's just based on the objectives. I'll just go very quickly because you can find it in the paper. You set your criteria. In this case, I'll just show you that it is 6 bottom line, yeah, not 3. You develop your options of solutions, what you need to do. You do an optional assessment from funnel approach, many solutions to a few solutions that then you can do quantitative analysis of. And then you do the quantitative analysis to find out and compare these different solutions from qualitative to quantitative using different methodologies and tools. And you do integrated decision making to address the criteria you've set in the very beginning. And then you can compare the outcomes of this in a quantitative fashion for different options. So when you do that, you can map the different solutions. And they have different performance across different dimensions. And then you have to decide which solution would you do. It's not you as expert to do that. You have to go back to the community and your clients because it's values-based of that community. What do they value most? And in this case, the community decided that they will do scenario 3, whereas they could have chosen a different scenario, for example, right? Because it's values-based solutions and decisions. I'll skip this one just to say this is important, the weighting and aggregation. The only thing is to talk about asset class when it's a rating system. It's for the asset class. But you can do this on a project-by-project basis, especially for large projects, when you apply this repeatedly, as an example. And the problem is that you can have a single index or final score, but the problem is that the end bottom line have different dimensions. So you can have a final weight at the end bottom line and make a decision in this comparison as opposed to the single index. I suggest number 2. Because in number 1, you don't see the values. Yeah? And as I said, there's a presentation in YouTube where I talk about this applied in cities, and I talk about resilience, which I don't talk about today, except to finish that we need to mind the gaps, aim for the goal. We need actors, and we need to sustain our innovation. So at COP30, we must work together with everyone to set national targets for whole life carbon. We need to develop the pathways, and we need to determine the actors and our own place in that ecosystem to achieve the goals. And for researchers, we need to continue to find holistic, innovative solutions. And the reason is it's not an option, it's a necessity. If the built sector is responsible for 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions and has indirect impact to the rest of the economy, it's not optional. We must have built environments that are sustainable and resilient because time is the ultimate non-renewable resource.
Nós vamos abrir para perguntas. Eu não sei se
We're going to open for questions. I don't know if you wish to ask any question. If you have any challenge, you can write on a piece of paper that we are going to take to the translators. And if anyone wish to ask directly, be our guest. If it's necessary to translate, please write on a piece of paper.
Greg, may I ask you one simple question? You talk about net zero energy. You are from Australia, you are you are not close to anybody, but you are very much influenced by the United States. That is the concept, net zero. We, in Europe, we talk about nearly zero. Would you like to comment this? Because it is different. As you know, net zero is that we have to find the balance between what we consume and what we produce. And when we talk about nearly zero, we talk about reducing as much as possible the energy consumption, and then we supply the the needed energy by renewable means. So, would you like to comment?
Yes. So this is a very important question that's been asked for decades. And for that reason, Annex 72 produced a paper and a report on this very issue, which is available in the Annex 72 website. There's a full report and there's a paper in Building and Cities on this matter. The other thing to point out, because I wouldn't get into the technical detail, that's why I'm telling you where to find the fine technical issues. The other thing to say is that Global ABC that I mentioned, they have an open call for stakeholders around the world to respond to a survey exactly for this reason. And the question is, how do you define or what do you include in a nearly zero emission? And that's open until this Friday, in fact. So if you see my LinkedIn post, there's a link to the survey by Global ABC for the same reason that you're asking. Now, this is important because we need to be having the same definition and meaning and framework, right? That's why clarity is important. It's the concept net zero blank. The blank is important. What are you talking about in net zero? So net zero energy is different than net zero emission. Yeah. And it's just the concept that in the end they balance between, as you say, supply and demand, and whether it's energy or emissions or other matters. We can only talk about in the built environment mostly about net zero energy, net zero emission, net zero water, net zero waste. So usually these are the blank items. In the emissions, we don't talk about energy anymore. We're beyond energy. It's about the emissions because energy has different types or sources of energy have different emissions footprint, and that's why we talk about the emissions footprint. The concept of near is twofold. One is that even in quantifiable means, there are always levels of uncertainty. Number one. Number two, it is time dependent, that days go up and down. It's dynamic. So the idea is you usually summarize or average them over a year on a yearly basis. That's the typical, that's the reason why it's net zero. So to be more practical, realistic, that's why we want to call nearly because of these fluctuations, dynamic fluctuations and uncertainties. The second thing is that in the net category, because you can do absolute reduction of emissions, and that's what we'd like to push more and more so now, is the absolute reduction, real reduction, not doing other things to pay for net, to develop the net things. That is the last recourse. And the fact is that these things that are supposedly negative actions have a lot of uncertainty and questions, including the offset systems. In Australia, this is very strong because there's a great evaluation of offset systems. And they find out that a lot of them are not reliable. And people pay, yeah, because you say, well, I'm emitting this much, but I'm paying this company and this system or that process so that I'm net. And that's why a lot of companies say, I'm net zero emission company. Because I pay for other people to pay for my emissions. That's why I'm saying we don't want to encourage that anymore. We'd like absolute reduction because of the absolute limit in the planetary boundaries. Yeah? And so in the end, nearly is really what you're talking when you talk about scientifically because of this uncertainty band. Yeah? Yeah, so that is the issue. it's just a question now of the pragmatic common reference framework that other people, not just the technical people, can work with. You know, that's the idea.
Mais alguma pergunta? Não? Bom, nós vamos dar continuidade.
We are going to continue. We would like to thank you for the excellent presentation, participation, being here, representing all of the organizations who are very important globally for the sustainable development,
Digamos a nossa audácia de candidatar
supporting
interior do Brasil.
the choice of Juiz de Fora, the countryside of Brazil, and bringing an important event to us. Just to complement, I think you must have seen in the website, we have many events in series.
É evento que ocorre
It
em
is an
série.
event that happens in
Nós tivemos
series,
a
and
audácia
we
de nos
were
candidatar
bold enough to
em Juiz de Fora e
candidate
trazer
here
o
in
próximo
Juiz de
vai ser em
Fora.
Tóquio.
The next one will be in Tokyo.
Depois tem Suíça, né?
Then we
E
have
representantes de
Switzerland.
vários países.
He
Nós
presented there are many
conseguimos
countries,
trazer
and we were
pra
able
gente
to
estar
bring it
bem
to Juiz de
atualizado
Fora
e
so we can
acompanhando o
be
que tá
very up to
acontecendo
date
mundialmente.
and follow what's
Uma
happened
boa
globally
representação
with a great
do professor
representation
que vem
of the
trazer pra nós
professor
mais
that brought
informações.
us more
Então,
information.
como nós não temos perguntas,
As
nós
we
vamos
don't
dar
have any more
continuidade,
questions, we are
porque o
going to
primeiro dia é
continue
sempre mais
because the first
tumultuado, né,
day
de
is
solenidade
always
pública.
more
Então, nós vamos
troublesome
prosseguir
with
com a
the
palestra da
opening.
professora
So we are going to
Manuela,
continue with the
pra depois a
keynote
gente fazer
of
intervalo no
Professor
almoço e
Manuela.
entrar já num ritmo
So, and then we're going to make a pause
mais
for lunch, and we are going
tranquilo
to
do evento.
continue on a more
Ok?
soothed rhythm.
Em nome da comissão organizadora,
In the name of the
gostaria de
organizing committee, I would like to
presentear
present
com uma
you
lembrancinha
with
do
a
evento
memento of the event
e de Minas Gerais.
and from Minas
Nós somos
Gerais,
mineiros, espero
because
que tenham muitos
we are from
mineiros.
Minas, and I hope there are many people
Minas é
from Minas
diferente
here.
no
Minas
país,
is
apesar de
different
vocês
from the
acharem
country.
que o
Even
Brasil
though you
é Rio de
think
Janeiro,
Brazil
São
is Rio
Paulo,
de Janeiro, São
mais
Paulo,
importante.
Minas Gerais is more important.
E vamos aguardar uma
And
próxima
we will
visita.
wait
Deixar
for your
pra
next
vocês que o
visit.
professor Greg vai estar os 3 dias aqui à
Professor Greg will
disposição,
be
quando
here
vocês
on the 3
quiserem,
days available
ter mais
whenever
informações,
you want to have more
informações
information,
com ele,
exchange
ele com certeza
information.
vai estar à
He would
disposição
definitely
para
be
conversar com
available to
cada
talk
de
to each and
vocês.
every one of you.
Tá ok? Muito obrigada, professor.
Thank you, Professor.
Cadê o outro microfone? Você vai falar no culto? Eu não sei só se ele chega aí, Manuel. Eu não queria lugar no microfone. Ah, você não
Eu só queria levantar um pouco. Desligaram o microfone. Agora voltou. Não, menos pior do que eu imaginei.
passador tá aqui. Você prefere o passador? Se tiver aqui no computador, eu não sei se ele vai chegar. Vai chega? Chega? O mouse
Acho que não vai ter compensação.
é esse daqui, ó. Esse branco é o quê? Esses 6 aqui. Esse branco também. Acabou o espaço dele. Fazemos uma... Não, esse daqui, isso aqui virar de lado. Entendeu? Esse daqui virar de lado. Isso aqui. Isso. Bom, dando prosseguimento, nós
Continuing,
vamos ter a palestra
we will
da
have the
professora
keynote
Manuela
from Professor
sobre
Manuela
a descarbonização
about the
no ambiente
decarbonizing in the
construído,
built environment
dentro
in
da
Europe.
Europa, né, as práticas
from policy to practice with renovation passports. Professor Maria Manuela is an old friend of ours. We even have a network of conjoint research. She came back so we can continue strengthen our network. She's professor of the engineering department of the University of Minho. She coordinates disciplines in the area of sustainability of the built environment, and she has graduation in civil engineering from the University of Minho, a doctorate from mechanical engineering, and a master's in thermal engineering by the University of Porto. She's a member of the international course in mechanical engineering, a master's in technical engineering, is it correct? And a licensing in civil engineering. She is a member of the international course in sustainability of the built environment. I got mixed up in the lines here, I'm sorry. The directive commissions in masters in constructions and sustainable rehabilitation. She is the coordinator from the sustainability construction from the Council of SBE. She participates in many commissions and councils in the European community, and she will continue with our keynote, and she will be open for questions. Bom dia.
And so, good morning. First, I would like to thank the organization for the invitation to be here in this conference, in this SBE conference. It is also always a pleasure to come back to Juiz de Fora. We have, as Professor Teresa said, a long collaboration that started, I think, 2012, so a long time ago, and we have been collaborating through the years. So it is really a pleasure for me to be here again. So I will give a talk today a bit different from Greg's presentation. And the topic I'm bringing here today is related, as Teresa said, to the decarbonization of the building sector, and that it is a global problem that we all face, as we saw in the presentation of Greg. But I am going to talk about a specific problem or a specific topic that it is related to the renovation of the built environment, and it is about the renovation passports, the building renovation passports, that are a tool or an instrument that is under development in the European Union. And these building renovation passports were designed to promote, to boost the renovation of buildings. So I'm going to bring here the European visions, let's say, but also trying to explain that this concept related to the building renovation passport is a scalable and an adaptable concept that can be used everywhere, like in Brazil or any other places in different contexts. So my idea is first to show you how the concept is being developed in Europe, but how we can adapt it in different contexts. So I will start by showing a very brief overview of the European context. And starting to say that in 2018, the European Union established a goal that is to full decarbonize the economy by 2050. So we have to have a carbon zero economy by 2050. And saying that this European commitment to the decarbonization is anchored it's anchored in okay, it's too close. Sorry. So this decarbonization, European decarbonization committee is anchored in a program, in a framework that it is known as the European Green Deal. And this European Green Deal, it is, has this goal to reach 2050 with zero carbon emissions in all the economy sectors. So we are talking about not only in buildings, but we have to reach the zero carbon emissions in transports or in this industry, in agriculture. So in every economic sectors, we have to reach this zero carbon emissions by 2050. So this is a very, very ambitious goal and not easy to do it. In Europe, we have developed a lot of programs and sub-programs that established the roadmap to reach this. Still very far. We are 25 years from 2050. So these programs, we have many programs, several programs targeted to the different sectors, and also we have some general programs. And like, for instance, this Fit for 55 package, that it is a general program that wants to reduce the carbon emissions, and the goal of this program is to reduce the carbon emissions by 55% by 2030. So because we have this final goal in 2050, but as this 2050 is too far, we have set different goals for 2040 and for 2030, just to help in this way to reach the final goal. So at the moment, the member states in Europe are worried with the targets that were defined by 2030, because 2030 is tomorrow. We are very close to 2030. And the goal we have, so at the moment in Europe, that it is concerning a lot the member states, is that by 2030, meaning tomorrow, we will have to reduce in 55% the carbon emissions. So this is difficult, and what I'm bringing here is related not with the global program, but with the building sector. So what are we doing with buildings? And also we have several sub-programs related to these specific sectors. And one of them that I would like to call your attention is this sub-program named Renovation Wave. This Renovation Wave wants, as a target, to triple the renovation rates
in the building sector by also 2030. So, as you can imagine, these are really ambitious, and to meet these goals, we have to have very strong regulation, and that it is one of the European characteristics, very strong regulation to put pressure on the several member states to do what they have to do to reach these goals. So, and we have this regulation we have we call them the directives, the European directives. We have lots of European directives. I just put here 3 that are, let's say, the major ones related to the building sector and to the decarbonization of the building sector. So, buildings. Why buildings are so important? Because to reach the zero carbon goal in 2050, we need to act in the different sectors. We need to act on the transport sector. We need to act on the industry, agriculture, so in all sectors of the economy. But why buildings are so relevant? Why buildings are so important? This is because buildings in Europe, these are numbers for Europe, they account for 36% of the carbon emissions and 40% of the energy consumption. So it is a lot. But these numbers are not much different from several parts in the world. So they represent a lot. And also there are other worrying numbers that we have 75% of the European buildings are energy inefficient, so they are not at all close to the zero carbon goal. And between 85 and 95% of these inefficient buildings, they will still be in use in 2050, because buildings, we build buildings for 100 years. So in 2050, they still be there. And we have been made a lot of efforts to improve the performance of these existing buildings, let's say in the last 10 years. But a recent report stated that between 2015 and 2022, although all the efforts done, we are very far from the goals. So the carbon emissions, in this period, the carbon emissions only went down 14.7% when the target was 28%, so half. And regarding the energy consumption in this period also only went down 2.8% when the goal was 60.5%. So less than half. So we are far from reaching the goal. So the progress we are expecting is slower than the needed one. So in this panorama, there is indeed an urgent need to deep renovate. Deep renovation is a term that has been defined in Europe because we can renovate the buildings and we can deep renovate the buildings. So it is a little bit, there is a difference. So we can renovate, for instance, if we paint walls, we are renovating the buildings. But this is not important in what comes to energy performance. So they have been defined, there is a definition for what is a deep renovation. So there is a definition for, we have lots of definitions. So there is a definition for deep renovation, that it is an intervention in the building that must reduce the energy demand by at least 60% while maintaining, assuring the adequate comfort conditions and comfort levels of the buildings. So, but at least we have to reduce 60% of the energy demand. And we have also established some goals for this deep renovation. And the building sector must cut the carbon emissions by 60% by 2030, when compared to 2015 levels. We also have to achieve a 3% deep renovation rate per year. And just to let you know, at the moment, we are already very close to 2030. At the moment, the deep renovation rate is around 0.2%. And we have to reach this 3% renovation rate per year. And also, 70% of all the renovations should be deep renovations by 2030. So you can see that we have to work a lot. So there is a lot to be done. And we also see that this is not just a technical challenge. It is also social, economic, and institutional challenge. So this is something that we have to have in mind. It's not only technical challenge that that we have to face. So, and then, is it worth doing it? Should we do it? Should we deep renovate our buildings? Okay, I think the answer is yes, we should do it, because there are a lot of benefits in doing it. You can see here, I just put a few reasons why we should deep renovate our buildings. We can talk about environmental benefits, like we can reduce the CO2 emissions, or we can reduce our dependency on the fossil fuels. We can talk about economic benefits by cutting the energy bills, or increasing the property value of the buildings, or creating jobs, for instance. We can talk about social benefits when we talk about improving the indoor comfort. And we also can talk about some strategic or policy benefits that are related to the reduction of the dependence of energy security, contributing to energy security. So, we have a lot of benefits in renovating, in deep renovating the buildings, but however, the renovation rates are still, they remain low, they remain very low. Why? They are remaining so low. Why people are not renovating, or why the building owners are not renovating the buildings? And the fact is that deep renovation, as I told before, is not just a technical challenge, because if it was only a technical challenge, it could be done easily. But it is not only a technical challenge. So it involves a lot of barriers. We have to face a lot of barriers. For instance, we have to face the high investment costs or the long payback periods. Also, the technical, the deep renovation is a complex process. It's not so easy. And also, we do not have the necessary skills to do that. There is a shortage of skilled labor and a shortage of efficient contractors to do this deep renovation. And also, we have the regulations that are inconsistent, unclear regulations that make it much more difficult. And we have also not data. There is a lack of data. We don't know how the buildings perform. We don't have those data in detail. And another thing that it is a very, very important thing is the lack of awareness and lack of motivation from the building owners that do not know about the benefits and also about the financial supporting schemes that they have available to help them in this renovation process. So, to move forward, we need to address all these issues and especially to better understand the human realities. But at the same time, as we have here already identified some barriers that we have to deal with, to face, we also have some instruments that have already been developed. Other instruments, other tools are still under development. And I just brought here 4 of these tools. One of them is the energy performance certificates, the EPC, that we have these energy performance certificates for more or less 20 years. These energy certificates were implemented in 2006, so almost 20 years ago. So we have a long story, a long experience already. So we have a lot of data related to this, the existing buildings, the existing building stock. But these energy performance certificates, the information we have there, it's one of the major problems is that the information they give are not based on real data. The information that we have in the energy certificates are mainly based on simulations, not on real data. And that is one of the big problems we have. So we have no real data information. And also these energy certificates, they were designed to inform the owner of the building. They make a picture of the building in a certain date, but they were not designed to guide the owners of the buildings in a renovation process. They just make a picture of the building in a moment. So, but now what we want is something that guides us on the renovation process. Okay, so, but they are a very important instrument, a very important tool that we have in Europe, is these energy certificates, but because they give a lot of information, but not the one that we now are wanting to have. But as I said, this is a 20 years old story. And now they are emerging other kind of tools, like, for instance, these digital building logbooks. These digital logbooks, they are digital files that have all the information related to the building. So the history of the building is on these digital logbooks. So this is something that are emerging at the moment. We have also other instruments like these one-stop shops. It is, the concept is not new, but only now these one-stop shops are emerging. And this one-stop shops concept is to create a local office close to the population, close to the owners of the buildings, to assist them in this, to help them in this renovation process, because renovation process is complex. So, and the owners just do not know how to do it. And these one-stop shops, it is a local office that it is there to help to give all kind of information to the owners, okay? And then we have these building renovation passports, the topic I chose to bring here today. And these building renovation passports, they are a customized, a long-term renovation roadmap for building renovations to help the owners to prepare in a long-term pathway for the building renovations. So what is a building renovation passport? So as I said, it is a structured, long-term, step-by-step renovation plan that it is tailored to each building, to each owner. So it must take into account each owner interests and circumstances. So it is a personalized renovation plan. And it also has to be based on real data. That it is the difference between these renovation passports and the energy performance certificates. The energy performance certificates, as I said, they are mainly based on simulations of the buildings, and these building renovations passports must be based on real data. So we must do some energy audits to prepare this renovation roadmap. So what it is important to understand the idea, the concept, that it is a personalized renovation plan, not a general, that one size fits all. That was what is happening now. No, it is a personalized renovation plan that has to take into account the circumstances, the needs, the expectations of each of the building owners. So, and why? Why passports, not checklists? Not checklists, because checklists is also what we have in a small part in the energy certificates. We also have there some checklists, but checklist is just something that reminds me what I have to do and when. But it is not what we want in a renovation passport. In a renovation passport, we want a detailed information about how I can do the renovation, when, because most of the times the problem is that I cannot do everything at the same time or at once. So I have to plan it, because our goal is to reach 2050, so we still have 25 years to reach this zero carbon goal. So I can do it smoothly, let's say. I can do it step by step, not everything today. Okay, that it is the beauty, if I can say it, of the renovation passport. And this, so the role also of these renovation passports is to help to build trust, because the lack of trust of the building owners on this renovation process is huge. So the role of these renovation passports is also to help build trust on the renovation market, to also help to make smart financial choices. Okay, this is also a relevant part. And also very important, because if I'm not going to renovate at once everything at just one time, I'm going to do it step by step. I have to be sure that what I am doing today will not prevent me to do something in the future that is a mistake, that prevent me to have an optimized renovation. So, as I said, the objective is also to help avoid renovation mistakes by ensuring that each upgrade supports the next one. So this is a sequence of measures that have to make sense. Okay. So these renovation passports, we still do not have a model. There is, and maybe there will never be a model or a template like we have in the energy performance certificates, because the energy performance certificates, there is a model, and every member states have to do with small changes, but in essence, they have to do exactly the same thing. Here, the idea is a bit different. We have to adapt to the reality, the context, the local context, the culture, everything. So each country has to develop their own renovation passports. And we have already some good examples, as those I'm showing here. These are the most, they are already implemented. We have one in Flanders, another in Germany. We have also experience in France, and we also have this IB Road to EPC. It is a European project that involves 6 European countries. That these 6 European, where Portugal is involved in this project, this IB Road project. And this is just a picture of one of the pages of the renovation passport that was developed under this project. And here, it's just an example, we can see what is the situation of the building. In this particular case, it was the building in 2022. This is just an example. And then we have what we have to do in 2025, what we have to do in 2030, what we have to do in 2040, until reaching the zero carbon emissions in 2050. So what is behind this concept? Because it is a concept. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. It's a concept. So these renovations passports must integrate not only technical solutions, but also it has to have social, behavioral, and financial dimensions all together. We have to look to the global picture and not only to the technical part of the renovation process. So these building renovation passports should connect people, data, and tools. And another thing, or few things that are important, these renovation passports must be based on real data. So just to make the difference from the energy performance certificates, they have to be linked. It is a must to be linked to the energy performance certificates because they complement each other. And also, if possible, if they already exist, they should also be linked to the digital logbooks I talked previously. And also they should be powered by these new emerging tools, the BIMs, the digital twins, the one-stop shops that I have already talked to. So we have to bring all this together. So, but we also have to have in mind that the implementation of these renovation passports is not free of challenges. So it will not be so easy, but we have to overcome these challenges. But we have to have in mind that we have to deal with this complex regulatory framework that I have already said that we have. It's a problem, a lack of standardization, it's a problem. We also have to deal with this technical complexity because these BIM digital twins, these energy audits, it's not so common everywhere. So it depends on the places, depends on the countries, but it is not a common practice everywhere. So we also have to deal with costs. Costs is a problem because to make the energy audits is costly. And also, again, we have to take in consideration that we are dealing with people, we are dealing with the persons, owners of the buildings, and energy and carbon emissions are not that important for the most of the families. They really don't care about energy or about emissions. It is not their problem. So, and we have to understand this. We have to understand that this human dimension is important, and we have to deal with it to be successful. Again, renovation is not just technical. Renovation is emotional, is social. So trust, comfort, and the daily priorities of the families, they shape every decision they take. So we have to understand this and we have to deal with this. So we have to understand that we have these emotional barriers. So people, there is a general lack of trust on the process, on the renovation market. The people are afraid of disruption, for instance. And there is a general lack of information and a general lack of awareness. So, and even when we find some families that want to renovate the buildings, most of the times they don't know how to do it, where to start, how can I do it, when can I do it? So what incentives do I have to do that? So people don't know. So, and many times they stay quiet and they do nothing. Even for those who know something and want to do something, but because the majority are not aware of this problem. We have to understand this. And also, as I said, but I repeat, energy is not always a priority. No. Often the people, the owners, they prioritize comfort, safety, noise, for instance, not energy. So these priorities come first. They come first. So not energy, no emissions. So we have to understand this, and to overcome these issues, we have to create some human scale services, let's say. So local office, like the one-stop shops I talked before, so they are local office close to the families, close to the building owners, that advise them on what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So, and to build this trust on the renovation market. Also important to have in mind is that the renovations can be expensive. And that is one of the major problems. That is one of the problems why the renovation rates are so low, because it can be expensive. So we have to understand that giving only advice on the renovation is not enough. We have, or the states, need to create some financing tools that have to be designed together with this technical guidance. So they have to go at the same time. So the technical guidance, but we also have to create these financing tools to support the renovation process. And this is a must that the governments must do. And in Europe, we have already, and in other parts of the world, of course, they have already developed several financial instruments, like the green loans, for instance, where we can have lower interest rates for energy upgrades. We have these energy performance contracts where third parties finance the upgrades, the renovations, and get paid with the savings. Also, we have the grants and subsidies that usually are designed to support the vulnerable families, the families in energy poverty. And just to say that energy poverty is a big problem we have in many of the European countries, and for instance in Portugal. Portugal is one of the countries where this energy poverty is more severe. Just to give you some numbers, 1/3 of the Portuguese population lives in energy poverty, so 1/3 is more than 30% of the people live in energy poverty. So this is a huge problem we have to face and to deal with. And these grants and subsidies are very important to support these vulnerable families. So this concept, the renovation passports, that the concept itself has been introduced a few years ago, but mainly in Europe. But it can be, and that is the message that it is important to pass, is that this concept is scalable and can be adapted to different contexts other than Europe. It can be adapted to different climates, different housing stocks, different energy poverty levels, different governance model, so it's adaptable and scalable. And we have already some good examples, as I said before, and some success stories. So these renovation passports are already in force in some places. Just to say, for instance, in Germany, that they have, when an owner undergo to a deep renovation process, he gets a detailed roadmap for the renovation process. It is already in force in Germany. In France, interesting because they have created the renovation advisor, that it is mandatory to have a renovation advisor when you undergo this deep renovation process. And also in Basque Country, in Spain, that they also have developed this concept similar to the one-stop shops to support and to help especially the low-income families. So these low-income families, they have a local office that can guide them and help them on how to improve the quality of their homes. So, but we also have other very interesting examples outside Europe. We have already some success stories in the United States, for instance, in California or New York, for instance. We also have examples in China, in India, in Australia. So there are already good examples that can inspire others to do the same. And what it is relevant to highlight is that there is not a model, there is not a template. So we have different logics, but the same goals. What is important is we have the same goals, and these goals must be based on principles. And the principles where these renovation passports build on are personalization, support, stacked planning or step-by-step planning, local actors, and trust building. These are the principles that we should have in mind when designing these renovation passports. We should not try to copy a template. So we have to base the design of these passports on these concepts and not trying to find a template. So we have, we can say that globally we have very similar challenges. We also have everywhere old and inefficient housing stocks. We have energy insecurity, we have raising energy bills, unequal access to the renovation funding. These are common problems that we can find everywhere. And we have then to find, to design the best renovation passport that fits our needs. And these passports, they can work well when designed with and for the communities. So we have to involve the communities in the process, in designing these renovation passports. And another important idea that is these renovation passports, they are not ready-to-use tools. We have to build them. And we have to build them, take into account the local realities, the local construction methods, the climate needs, the social dynamics. So we have to take all these in account. And in a co-creation process, we have to design the most suitable renovation passport we can have for our community. So it is really important, this co-creating process. And also we have to ensure that the tools we are developing are inclusive, understandable, and useful for people. Otherwise, they will not be adopted, used, if people do not find them useful for them and if they do not respond to our needs. So do not copy, adapt, and combine. And one of the most powerful characteristics of these renovation passports is that it's not the document itself, but the ecosystem that it is created around the renovation passport. And we should understand these renovation passports as a toolbox. A flexible toolbox that must integrate technical, financial, digital, and human tools. So all together. And a flexible toolbox should include or must include building audits. It is the base for these passports to understand how the building is working. Must include financing models, like the green loans I talked before. We must have these one-stop shops or community advisors, that they are close to the people, close to the building owners, to guide the owners on the selection of the measures they have to implement. We also have these digital tools, the apps, the BIMs, digital twins, also WhatsApp, that it is, everybody uses WhatsApp, so we can also use this kind of tools to help us, to support us in this process. And we have this step-by-step, that it is the message, a step-by-step. I do not have to do everything at once, at the same time, and also to involve the community in the renovation process. So just I'm finishing. What's next in Europe? How we are in Europe at this moment? As Europe is moving step by step also towards to have a mandatory renovation planning. So at this moment, the European member states, they are developing, designing their own renovation passports based on the local or regional context. And the idea is that from next year on, so from 26 on, these building renovation passports will be mandatory for deep renovations, if you remember the definition I gave you at the beginning. So not for all renovations, but for deep renovations. From next year on, these renovation passports will be mandatory, because it is the only way we have, or we think is the only way we have to reach the goals. And if you remember, we have these 2030 goals that we have to reduce in 25% the carbon emissions. And the building sector is really relevant to reach this goal. So this is my last slide, where I briefly summarize the main ideas. So we have different contexts, but we face the same global challenge. As Greg said before, we have to decarbonize our economies. And decarbonizing buildings is not just a technical goal. This is important to remind. It is a shared responsibility and an opportunity to create better homes, better cities for all of us. So renovate buildings is an opportunity also to improve the quality of life of the citizens. And the renovation passports are a tool capable of improving and boosting deep renovations with a personalized approach. That it is the most important. And each region must shape its own answers built on shared values that I said before: inclusion, fairness, long-term vision, and collaboration. So let's work together. Thank you. Obrigada. Obrigada.
Thank you. We are going to open for questions if anyone would like to ask a question, but before, I was looking at my messages. I tried to bring for a keynote a former student from the university that now works in the Ministry of Mining and Energy. We're still a little bit behind in Brazil, but when I said about the event and I showed one of the keynote speakers, the answer was, wow, I'm trying to approve new requisites of sustainability for buildings this year here in Brazil. Mandatory stamping. Now we still work in a more simple way in relation to Europe. Now it's going to be mandatory for buildings. And of course, continuing our conversation on WhatsApp, there is a giant resistance in the building companies, and we continue the conversation. Unfortunately, we're not able to bring him because of his scheduling in Europe. He's there right now, so he wasn't able to come here to tell us what is going on inside Brazil in the Ministry of Mining and Energy. So in the future, the passports that we are going to have to renew. So it's a very important theme for us. I'm going to open for questioning. Whoever wants to ask a question, I don't know if any of you would like to ask a question. You can ask in Portuguese. She said that she preferred to speak in Portuguese. No one has a question? No? I'm going to give some...
Vou fazer a pergunta em
I'm going to ask in Portuguese.
Let's work together. Talvez
Let's work together.
seja interessante
It might be
dar
interesting.
alguns exemplos de como
Give some
podemos
examples
trabalhar juntos
on how we could work
a
together
nível transnacional,
in a
a nível transcontinental,
global,
a nível
continental,
transestadual também,
state level.
nos países que são constituídos por estados. Talvez fosse interessante
It might be
mostrar
interesting to show
o background
the background
do nosso grupo.
on what our group is doing,
Talvez dê algumas ideias
because it might give some ideas
desse better together.
of this better together. The work together, the working together here, the idea is what I tried to show was that we have a lot to learn one with another. And what I tried to show here is that there are no single solutions. We can look at what others have done and, oh, what did they do? That can be interesting. Can I adapt this? Will that be a good solution for me? For whoever did that. So this is the idea that we were able to learn with the experiences of others. And it is very important to see what happened, what's happening, because this is a global problem. We have different realities, but we have a common problem, which is the problem of decarbonization. We have to decarbonize. Even though we have different cultural contexts, economical contexts, we still have a similar issue, and we can learn sharing experiences. It was in that reason. What you wanted to say might be a little different from our collaboration, what we have been doing. Right now, we have in our group, which is what you asked, in our group, we have been working in this area of decarbonizing in building, decarbonizing in cities, not only just for the building, but to a group of buildings. We have been working in sustainability. You also will have the opportunity to explain the circular in construction, which is the theme of your presentation tomorrow. We also are developing solutions. We develop solutions. This is our strengths. This is the strength in our laboratory, which is the development of solution, rehabilitation of buildings, but also the revitalizing of the faces of buildings, which is based in the circular economy. We have, for example, we developed a panel with recycled plastic. We are studying other ways of recycling plastics. We developed a panel that we 3D printed, where we 3D printed the solutions. This is just an example. We have many developments in sustainable constructions, which are from bio materials. We also have something in this area, generically speaking. That's kind of what I want to see. But the part of energy, we also have to work in the implementation of renovating passports. I just wanted to show how we are going to develop and apply, in this case in Portugal participated in the project, that we are giving a lot of information, but we want to move on even more and see how we are going to implement those renovation passports in Portugal. As I told you, here in Brazil, we expect that until the end of the year, that becomes mandatory. We're going to have a lot of work together so that we don't make the same initial mistakes that every beginner makes based on inexperience, and so that we can have this process of certification become mandatory, more effective, less costly, emotionally, professionally, in the civil construction. I really would like to thank you for the keynote, a memento of the organizational committee. Thank you for our partnership, which will increase even more. I would just like to give some news. We are going to make a lunch break. We will come back at 2:30. You must have seen on the folder, there is a discount, but be free to have lunch whenever you like. A lot of people are still missing to participate. We have an amphitheater 3, which is the main one. Every time we have a keynote, which is going to be in the morning, if this amphitheater is full, you can go to amphitheater 2. It is being transmitted there simultaneously, so you don't have to worry. The keynotes are being transmitted on the YouTube channel On the website, there is the link if you want to watch through there after with more calmly. So you can enjoy and talk to Greg, Manuela, what they have been developing during these 3 days. So you can access the YouTube channel at home. We will come back from 2:30, which will be the presentations of the panels of the articles. Some people have arrived. Yeah, I'm talking to you. She received last time that her article was accepted. How am I going to do? But we're going to start at 2. And then the schedule continues. We're going to stop for a coffee break in the afternoon. From 2:30 to 3:30, we stop for a coffee break. Then we return to finish the presentations of the articles during the afternoon. And then at night, I expect you, we all expect you, from the Commission, we expect you for us to celebrate the beginning of this event and the future enrichment of our research here at the university and all the participants here. At night, we have a coffee break. Everything will be here. So today we stay here. You only leave for lunch and then we come back. We are waiting. Okay? I want to tell you ahead. You might have seen behind your badge, there is a QR code. We made a survey to see how you are seeing the event. I hope that by the end of the event until Friday, you can fill this questionnaire. It's not long, it's 5 questions. Very simple questions to answer, nothing very bureaucratic, just so we can collect the information from you so that next year we can bring again SBE to Brazil with the suggestions and corrections that you make, or any other event that we end up making. Have a very good lunch and see you in the afternoon. So the presentations will be in Amphitheater 1 and 2. The presentations of the articles, keynotes, always here with simultaneous translation.